You guys all ran together?
The township.
We didn't do that for.
That was a. They said no.
Pleasant sight is trying to go eke out one more body and get.
Good. How you doing? I forget these old ones, right?
Anyone need an agenda? Oh, yeah.
That's it.
Habitually 40 minutes late every day. because she's-
How you doing?
Yes.
No, I'm good, thank you. That was this whole thing.
Thank you.
China.
I said, don't say that, okay? Nice strategy.
How you doing, Scott? Good. We have caught somewhere else coming together. I think so.
Yeah.
I waited for
Right, everybody, we're gonna call the meeting to order, okay? So we can stay on time. It is for what? Who's got the? Okay,
Yeah, 403.
thank you. We're gonna do roll call. Vice Chair Tony McGaldy,
Here.
Secretary Scott.
Here.
Ken Fletcher,
Here.
Calvin Jones,
Here.
Brian Clark,
Here.
and Rachel Elzinga.
Here.
Awesome. We have a quorum. Thank you all. And Peggy Bonpane here. All right, we have an agenda before us. Are there any motion to approve the agenda as submitted?
So moved. Support.
Sure. All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Approved. All right, public comments. No one is here for public comments today. All right, approval of minutes from the April 10th meeting. Do I have a motion to approve? Support.
So moved.
Second.
So, all those in favor, by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. All right, there are no old items of business. All right. So let's move on to the new items of business. Quarter work plan. I get to delete that today.
I will. Okay,
Peter.
so hi, everybody. I think you remember me, Peter Benser, new Economic Development Director here. So I'm really happy to be here this afternoon with you. You'll notice the consultant's not here in the room with us today. And that's kind of by design. We wanted to take a chance to step back a minute and talk about kind of some of the intersecting initiatives that are all happening as part of all this. And I fully recognize that I'm coming in kind of as the boat's already left the dock and you're off into the waters, but I was thinking this would be helpful to kind of get some context about how a couple different initiatives are all moving together and get some board feedback on that. In the background, we have been working with Progressive AE, and I know that they did the lion's share of the lift and getting everything off the ground. They have provided some feedback or another draft of questions for the survey that we're moving towards. And in my mind, it was I kind of wanted to get some direction on these questions and kind of what they're meant to inform. So the draft TIF plan talks about having this corridor plan, and the corridor plan is going to do everything under the sun for the CIA board in terms of coming up with kind of some land use and zoning, streets and other infrastructure, but then also kind of the big picture of the corridor, where it goes from here. I think one of the challenges inherent with that is there are going to be some other groups doing kind of the same thing here in the next, well, some of them are sooner than others, but so the Planning Commission had started its master plan update. And that has been on hold, there was some work that was started, and then it's been on hold kind of during and post pandemic. So I'm thinking that stepping back and taking a look at all of this together will help us understand how all these different groups are coordinating, and then ultimately lead us to a plan, which I think then informs kind of what we push for with MDOT and maybe how hard we push on or prioritize some of the different aspects of that plan. And I don't have any insight right now about what kind of is acceptable to MDOT in terms of improvements and how much we can supplement their overall plan. And understanding it's down the road a ways still, but I think the time is right for those conversations and kind of how all this jives with everything else. So that's kind of where in the headspace that I'm at in terms of thinking about this conversation today. You see, there's a memo in the pack and I'm kind of just running through it, but the first thing is the master plan update. So like I said, it started in 2018, got interrupted by the pandemic. There are some big policy questions that I'm envisioning the planning commission and this board kind of chewing on over the next, I don't know, 6 months. And land use policy. So ultimately, and this all feeds into MDOT's project. How close to buildings to the road? How tall should they be? What are the mixes of land use? Should we keep it straight commercial like it is now? Do you envision seeing residential along the corridor? Kind of green belt are we anticipating? Could there be a boulevard in Saginaw Highway? All of these things I think are things that the planning commissioners are going to be looking at as part of the master planning process. And then maybe the corridor being what they call a sub area plan of the master plan. To me, that is kind of directly intersects with what the CIA board is looking at and what the elements of this corridor plan could be. And understanding the limitations of the TIF plan and the locations of the TIF where the TIF districts are set up. So I guess what I'm proposing is just some sort of alignment of those vision and goals and some kind of collaboration on those two fronts. How that manifests, I don't have the answer now. I'm just envisioning that these are kind of important to understand what other groups are going to be up to here in the next so long. We also have a non-motorized plan update. So the township's undertaking that. And I think that's further along, right, Brian, in terms of where the plan is at.
Well, it depends how you look at it. Right now, it's out for RFQs. So we would not get started, but we have a pretty robust non-motorized plan currently. So it's just an update of it. So.
And yeah, the plan's on the website. It was last updated in 2018. It just looks at kind of current paths on off-road pathways, where new pathways could be, where there currently links, and where they're missing connections to neighborhoods. And I think that all, again, that feeds into kind of what the corridor could be in the future. We have connectivity on the north and south side of Saginaw Highway. I know there have been previous discussions with, internally, externally about connections to the west.
Yes.
Over the whether it's over, through, around the highway. And then incorporating I've done a little bit of walking on the corridor, but making that non-motorized experience on the corridor, facilitating it so it's easier, safer. Again, just another aspect that kind of feeds into what this corridor plan could be in the future. And then the last thing is the big part of this is that MDOT project that's coming our way down the road. Design's expected to start on the first part on the west side in 2024. And then the way I'm seeing this is just getting our foot in the door, trying to supplement as many and coordinate as many projects happening concurrently. While the road's ripped up, what can we get done? And I don't, like I said before, I don't have a lot of insight into how far MDOT's willing to accept changes. I'm sure they have their scope and what can we get involved with that as much as possible. But starting now and having conversations with those folks is really, I think, our best foot forward.
Peter, I think when MDOT's redoing Saginaw, I think Calvin said he's going to be burying the power lines at the same time.
We haven't discussed that yet.
I will check that off this list.
Yeah, please not.
So I'm seeing at least on the west side. So the design started on the west side. I mean, that's, interchange of the highway is I wouldn't even begin to know what the best way to tackle that is and what is possible in that area. Now, the rest of the corridor is, I feel like potentially maybe more open to implementing design preferences and public improvements that are derived from what township board, corridor board over time. So I feel that there are some opportunities on the rest of the corridor, not throwing out the west side. It just seems very dangerous and very technical on the west side of the highway where cars are going on the highway. But we've got, with that said, we've got 4 miles to work with here. And just trying to identify what are the priorities and what can we do to incorporate those into construction work, minimize travel disruptions. Just with the 1 lane, we've seen what the impact with 1 lane being down in 1 small portion of the corridor was going to be like. So trying to kill as many, I guess, put as much stuff in there as possible. It's a real opportunity for township. So I have here a list, and a lot of this is derived from the development and TIF plan. Some of this stuff I haven't engaged with MDOT. I know that they're open to working with local municipalities on this kind of thing if they can check their boxes. But I had upgrades to utilities, potential rerouting. So there we've got water and sewer lines along Saginaw. Are there areas to where they may need to be rerouted to plan for future growth? There's also the township's working on a utility study to figure some of that out. So maybe we can kill some of that as part of this project. Installation of a boulevard, and I don't know what exactly I mean yet by a boulevard. It was discussed in the TIF plan, in the vision that Progressive AE had thrown out there. I don't know if it's a pedestrian respite boulevard or if it's just simply like a dividing line. We talked about, the plan talks about enhanced or new relocated pedestrian crossings. And that came up during the discussion about the survey, where are the best places to cross? Is it safe now for people to cross? I think getting some of that, understanding all that would be helpful. Non-motorized connectivity, installation, landscaping, street trees, boulevard planning, kind of how do we, you've seen those transects of a roadway, like how do we envision that? What kind of space do we have to work with? What is there room for? What are we willing to accept from a maintenance perspective, and what's MDOT willing to help us with? Talk about street lighting, burial power lines. I mean, I put in investigating the feasibility of burying the power lines. I worked on a project in Okemos that it ended up being, it cost prohibitive. It ended up being very expensive. I guess I'll just put it that way. I'm not letting anybody off the hook. Yeah. But I mean, at least investigating that, is it feasible at all? And if it's not, is there options, is there options to move them or raise them or get them out of the way kind of thing? Installation of bus shelters, the new route that started today. They're just doing signs in front of businesses. So there's no shelter, no nothing, it's just signs. Maybe in the future, there's options to build off of that and enhance them. I guess we'll see as ridership numbers come in. But everything, people that do take public transportation regularly, we need that shelter. If we expect them to use it, year round. And then improvements to access management. The township does have a pretty thorough access management ordinance. Are there opportunities, or will there be opportunities along the way to, I know this sounds bad when you say it out loud, but potentially closing off driveways and restricting access in some place, shared driveways. So those are some of the things that might fit into a future MDOT project. I was hoping today we could talk about kind of those initiatives, all in the context of this survey. I've been calling the survey that you've been talking about for the last couple of meetings kind of a perception survey, just getting, how do people feel now about it? Whether it's safety, aesthetics, changes they'd like to see. So I don't have any specific asks other than that. How do you see some of these items coming together? Is there interest in working with like a group like the Planning Commission to provide, to receive some input from them on where they're going with the master plan? What have their discussions been about the Saginaw Highway Corridor? And yeah, I think that's it for now. Does anyone have any questions about kind of how this, or is there any aspects of this that I'm missing right now?
I missed a few meetings, so I haven't really seen the survey. Is there a place where I can go to?
I can send you
Prior-
draft questions.
Would
Yeah.
you do that? please?
Yeah. Yeah, we'll send that out.
It's not finalized.
Right, just so I can kind of get a feel for what it looks like.
And I would just add, Peter and I met with Suzanne and her team on the survey, I think it was last week, and so we discussed some of this stuff and they thought it was worthwhile to just take a little step back to just kind of reanalyze while they're working on improving the draft of the survey, just to talk about some of these things.
Well, I number one, I thought the notes were helpful for me personally. So there was a lot of good detail in here about, growth and change, and that's good to put in perspective. And then my takeaway to your immediate question, Peter, I think is, I think it would be instrumental that we get involved with the master plan, to either influence it or understand it, or both. So yes, I agree that collaboration, communication, as long as it doesn't, I hate to use the word speed in this room because it seems like a paradox, but we certainly don't want anything to slow down anymore, because if it does, we'll have to be in a time machine going backwards.
I agree with Scott on this. I think just not quite knowing for sure myself what the master plan looks like, or where they stopped and where they're trying to go to moving forward.
Our planning director,
Yeah,
Gary's here
yeah.
specifically to this point.
Let me talk a little more. So we have a draft of the plan dated 2020. The plan commission did a full review of the draft. They were dissatisfied, I guess I'll put it politely, with several aspects that of the plan that the consultant provided. This plan kind of basically, the original thinking of this group is it has divided the corridor into a number of segments, each with unique qualifications, unique characteristics. In fact, it's divided the township into over 20 what we'll call neighborhoods. And so the corridor that was one of the weaknesses that the planning commission found, the way that the consultant defined it. And I think that it's important to have this group be on the same page with the planning commission in terms of how the corridor is defined, how it's described in terms of characteristics. If we're looking at mile segments from Broadbent down to Waverly Road, that kind of thing, and basically identify opportunities and obstacles to what this group wants to do and the planning commission wants to do. And so it's not that one group we should have precedence over the other, but I think you're right, it should be a collaboration of that. So the comp plan is fairly well along, and it's been stopped for a couple of reasons. One, the 2020 plan did not have 2020 census demographics. They used 2010. So all that needed to be updated. The neighborhoods that they, as a consultant, defined them, they weren't satisfactory to the planning commission, so they need to be redefined. And this is an opportunity for this group to define the corridor for that plan. As Peter mentioned, we consider this and the non-motorized plan and other plans as sub-area or subtopic plans that are recognized by the master plan. So, to have that coordination between the groups, I think is important. So we have a draft, but it's not up to par in terms of what the planning commission expected from the consultant. So we're on hold, and the activities of the CIA and getting that going and all the work associated with that kind of helped put it on hold too, because again, we should coordinate the efforts of the CIA board and the planning commission. So the planning commission didn't want to go forward without having the input of this body, since the CIA is new and we had never done one before, and it represents a good opportunity, at least defined for the planning commission as a sub area of the corridor. So that's kind of where we're at.
So quick question. I know that way back when we did meet with the township board, did we ever go over the master plan at that time?
I don't think we did. I don't remember
I don't
that.
recall it.
No.
Is that something that we can get a copy of?
Sure, there's a draft plan that you can take a look at.
Okay.
I can make that available. I'll make it available through Peter.
Thank you.
What is the master plan coverage? Is that the whole Saginaw?
Township.
The whole
Whole
township,
township.
That's everything.
everything.
Right, so this is a, this is
Whole
a,
overload. Okay.
just a smaller geographic area and a lot,
Gotcha.
and it's gonna have a lot more scrutiny. Because of your work and the kinds of things
Yeah,
that this body might want to see and what the planning commission might want to see. So for instance, if you're talking about residential components or redevelopment, we have an area defined in the plan and the zoning ordinance where we have special zoning regulations to encourage redevelopment. We have mixed use building standards where you can have a mixture of retail on the bottom floor and residential on top. We haven't anybody that has wanted to do that yet, but I mean, I know that's to one of the enhancements to the corridor that this group wants to see in the planning commission. So there are some, tools already in the zoning ordinance to accomplish what you want. It's just a matter of bringing that to your attention. So we have very strong access management control in the zoning ordinance. We've had them since the 90s. Again, MDOT is the ultimate authority and permit grantor for MDOT, but we have our regulations were reviewed by them and accepted by them. There are times when MDOT won't go along with the driveway closure that our ordinance requires. Well, they supersede us, but for the most part, we have been trying to do shared shared access rather than each parcel has an individual driveway along Saginaw. So we have some tools and things we're doing already. And, it'd be helpful for you to know that. So.
Any thoughts?
Well, yeah, I'd just like to say that, we've been receiving information from a number of stakeholder groups. I don't have any objection to hearing a little bit more from a stakeholder group in reference to what we're seeking to accomplish. I don't have any problem with that. Like my friend Scott indicate, though, I wouldn't like to slow down the process, but I'd like to get as much information as possible as we move forward with this objective.
That's good. Any other comments?
is there a date? I mean, are we looking for the planning master plan? And you're talking about, our plan here. Is there a balance here that we're looking? I mean, is it the end of the year or is there a time frame?
Well, I've been kind of waiting on the work of this board so that can be plugged into the master plan. And then
Okay.
moving forward to that. So I see this probably happening first and then the planning commission proceeding with the revising the draft plan. So.
Okay.
I think the non-motorized component can almost probably go along parallel because non-motorized plans also covers the whole township. But there will be specific. This board will be putting some specific focus on what does that look like for a corridor plan in this area, correct? So.
And so that part of it, we're looking to get done by the end of the year, right, Brian? Essentially, if we can.
Yeah. And that also becomes a sub component. of the master
Exactly.
plan.
It's referenced in the plan as being. Again, a more, the plan recognizes non-motorized, but the actual non-motorized plan is very much more detailed than you'd find in a comprehensive plan. So it's incorporated by reference. Otherwise, the document would be 300 pages long. So.
And then regarding the corridor plan itself, I don't think you're obligated to adopt a corridor plan, but it's suggested in the TIF plan that you do. I guess I just think of it as like a policy document, that you have a plan for how this is to inform kind of these projects. I was thinking that the survey could be step one of this. This is going to kind of lay your groundwork. And right now we have progressive AE on. I don't know if we're obligated to use them for a long-term plan, but to certainly to start with this, facilitate this survey, get this thing out on the street. Well, one of the reasons I wanted to mention that was just thinking like, do the questions that we've drafted so far, will they have a life after this? Do they help inform kind of this plan? And then if we can settle on that at the next meeting, say, then that goes on the streets for what we haven't determined a time, let's say 30 days or so, 45 days. Come back with the results of that and then talk about what the components of the corridor plan. I've read a lot of corridor plans in the last couple of weeks. I mean, they run the gamut. They can be very detailed with technical engineering drawings to more just policy documents that kind of express your values and goals and maybe some specific project details.
So when you all were working with Suzanne and others, participate to work on the questions that we worked on last month, is that when that was? What kinds of changes did you do or did you make?
I don't know if I can characterize them. I think they just clarified a couple things.
Because we requested some follow-up questions.
Yeah.
on Saturday, so I'm assuming it's just to tweak those.
It was just tweaking what they had.
Mhm.
And then I had submitted some stuff and the way my brain works is a little bit different. I'm not in the consulting field. I probably never will be. I was looking at more kind of binary, like, do you feel safe on the corridor? So I had submitted a handful of those. I can share those with the group after this. And they were going to incorporate that into the kind of the overall picture. What Brian and I are going to have so after this meeting, we're going to have a conversation with Suzanne about where we go with the questions. And I'm not putting the brakes on that at all. That wasn't the intent of this conversation. It was just to kind of have the step back, have this kind of informative chat, and then they can follow up with the revised questions. We'll share that with the group and then we could be off to the races in a month on those.
So that would be the next meeting? that you
Yeah.
anticipate? Okay.
Does it have to take another month to get there? Or is it?
With just a
I mean,
special
you're
meeting
just-
in between.
Yeah, we'd have to have like something for some feedback from this group.
Doesn't have to. I think we just wanted to make sure that we were getting the right
Sure.
data out of it that would be helpful down the road as well without, not throwing away any of the previous questions that have been, discussed, but different tweaks and different things. So.
Well, I think everybody agrees with that, not to speak for everybody, but like Peter, I agree, trying to know what the outcome is before you start is always helpful. So, maybe it'd be fruitful to spend a few minutes discussing what is the outcome, what is the content or information we want to know. I know we danced around that a month ago and I think it was fine, but if there's something maybe the township has identified might have been lacking that could have been useful content, that those questions weren't leading to, what was the nature of that? But in general, I think what we discussed was get general feedback from the community or those willing to share with a little bit of steering towards specific topics of interest about how they felt on it. And again, paraphrasing my memory, which isn't very good at my age, but that we wanted to be careful not to ask questions that we really didn't want the answers to. If we say, do you want to crosswalk over the highway? The answer is going to be, yeah, we do. Okay, well, we can't afford it, but thanks for telling us.
Well, right, I think the goal of the initial set of questions is to temperature check what the community is feeling about the whole corridor in general. And then we take those and then further deep dive, right, and to develop maybe a few areas of focus that we would then incorporate to our CIA plan. That's my understanding.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what it was. Because it was kind of current perceptions, but then also prioritizing some specific improvements. And then we can use that to justify what to include in a plan to kind of justify policy. What do we attack first? Go down the line.
So, sorry, go ahead, Brian.
Sorry, I would say we also kind of are working with a little bit of a dichotomy of the upcoming project that we're trying to, get information to help MDOT give some feedback, but also feeding into the overall vision of a full corridor and how we want the whole corridor to look. So want to keep both in mind as we're doing that.
Is it important for us to have a conversation about the kind of plan we want to come out of this? Because you'd mentioned either a policy-based plan or a technical plan or a combination of both. And with knowing that the master plan is out there, like, is that something like you guys envision us needing to determine what kind of plan this is? Or do you already have that determined for us so that we can complement what's out there?
I was envisioning that this group kind of putting their flags in specific policy directions. Like
Which
you
makes
want
sense.
to,
That makes
yeah,
sense.
you want to see, because that, I mean, then whatever chorus arises out of that, whether it's, we don't want mixed use, we don't want, whatever it is. I think that will help support the initiative, the direction. It'll help. Planning commission will get that input. They'll know where you stand on things. Hopefully it's all aligned and those conversations can happen. And if they aren't, that there can be some conversations to align them. But that's kind of where I was envisioning, was you kind of planting flag in some direction.
We do have some funds identified, now depending on how the capture goes, that we have future, or we identify different things like market studies or wayfinding plans or traffic studies or design guidelines. So down the road, once we have kind of a policy document, we can always delve into more of a technical aspect if we are at that point where we need to, and we have the funds to do that. We do have those identified as potential expenditures. So that's always, something for the future.
Madam Chair, I'd just like to ask, policy or technical plan, it doesn't matter to me much, but I kind of wonder, what is the planning committee? What kind of plan do they have? Do they already have a policy?
So the comprehensive plan is an advisory document, Township board. And the tools that we use, the major tool we use to implement those policies identified in the plan is a zoning ordinance. And so when we have a request for a rezoning or special land use permit, first thing we go to is the comprehensive plan, which advises what's the recommended land use for this area. And that's included in our report to the board when they make the final decision. So ostensibly, it's a policy document.
Policy document.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the standards come elsewhere in the zoning ordinance and our construction standards in the building code. So it's doesn't have that type of technical requirement. So.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other comments? Questions?
Love to see the updated survey.
Yes.
So we can't see any updates right now?
I can we'll send the draft out to you after this meeting, yeah.
Okay. that would be
Okay,
great.
that'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, there's no intent to kind of obscure it or anything. We just wanted to take a minute to talk about this other stuff too.
Okay. Because I mean, I guess would it help? You mentioned, next meeting, essentially reconcile, validating all the survey going out. I mean, is it worth spending a little bit of time to sort of work plan this out a little bit? I mean, what's the next 90 days look like?
Good point.
Just trying to understand what's the next step.
Mhm.
So we can move this along, because it seems like it is dragging.
Do we feel like we need to engage with the planning commission before we have the survey go live? Or before we finalize the survey?
Yeah, I mean, at least take a look at what they have thus far. Wouldn't hurt.
Mhm.
That'd be good. What does everybody else think?
No.
I think that'd be great.
I don't have a strong feeling about it one way or the other. I mean, I may feel different after I review the work, but my hunch is the seeking information as unbiased as you can, that the work that's already been done shouldn't influence our questions necessarily. But
No, yeah, I was talking about even after
Like
that.
after.
After.
Yeah,
The next
no,
step, so survey,
I think
get it
that
back.
Yeah,
collaborate?
I,
What's the
I-
next step?
I don't think we have to wait to meet with them to finish the survey. I think we have to wait to them to make a plan for sure.
So what we're really looking for is, I think, is a revised timeline
Mhm.
Okay.
for us, so that we're just not coming to each meeting, trying to
Mhm.
figure out what we're doing.
Yeah,
That would be helpful for me.
Okay.
Rest of the board.
agreed, agreed.
We'll put that together.
Thank you.
And again, I would throw out not to spend everybody else's valuable time if, you know, meeting every 2 weeks for a while, if things can move along that quickly, so we can move the ball down the field, understanding you all and everybody, I'm sure, has multiple other projects they're working on, and I do too, so. But, no, I think we'd all like to look at what we're doing and be able to be accountable to the community and say, yes, we're moving forward. Slow as it may be, we are moving forward.
Any other comments?
Thanks for taking the time to discuss this.
Appreciate your leading that discussion.
Mhm.
Peter. What else then do we have to talk about?
Oh, you've got this. So I attached it's called on the agenda, it's called tenant changes and new business tracking. So this document will probably morph in terms of format over time, but and I think you've seen variations on this over the years of different staffers and different departments and like that. But my initial take on it is just, and this is more half a tool to get my head oriented around everything that's going on here, but also a document that we can use to report out on regularly. So I plan on sharing this, Township Board, Corridor Improvement Authority, EDC. So it's simply a tracking of recently opened businesses or things that were completed recently, things that are coming soon, businesses that have relocated, expanded, rebranded, changed their names, projects that are currently under construction, and then projects that made their way through the process but haven't started yet. And then also things that are kind of in the chute right now. So it's a lot of stuff, but it's supposed to be, it's supposed to be just kind of a township at a glance kind of document. And one, I just put it on the agenda just to share it with everybody to know that it's out there. Two, if you have any feedback on tweaks or different aspects of this that you'd like to see, please do share, kind of change this whatever works best for everyone. And then if you have any questions about the content of the list, that's here now.
Well, Peter, I truly appreciated this. This was really
Great, it was
helpful.
great.
Me too.
One page that has everything. So I think that's been helpful for all of us to have. Look forward to continuing to see the updates and changes on it.
Okay.
Peter, one thing that maybe would be helpful is just the estimated dates on all the projects, because that's obviously one thing that everybody always asks and wonders about. So I don't know, things change from what, when a project gets started, their estimated
Yeah.
time of opening, but if we have for all the projects where they've been giving us something, if we have that listed, that's helpful
Sure.
too.
Yeah. All right. Thanks.
Just looking at the list here. Was it last Monday? Was there a township board meeting on the 300 units? I see the 349 units at Delta Crossing Phase 3.
There was a discussion on the sewer issue that impacts that project, yeah.
There was a public hearing scheduled that ended up coming off the agenda. It'll be in the future.
Okay.
Like how far?
What's the?
Well, right now, what we discussed last Monday is we have some pretty significant sanitary capacity issues that affect that project and basically any projects west of Broadbent. So unless we have a solution, which the solution is money in a big sewer project, it's probably gonna be a while for any developments, mainly in our Willow Lift Station sewer district, which is west of Broadbent, and then some south of kind of Marketplace area, all the way down to St. Joe, basically.
Thank you for that update. Other comments?
I just have a question. If we need to be having discussions as since it's, just the beginning phases of where the TIF is at with the impact to the Delta Crossings project on the TIF capture to support the activities of this board. Is that a conversation we need to be having? Like, I'm not saying today, but at some point, 'cause I'm assuming the impact to the is quite significant. And so when we talk about making plans and maybe next steps to support those plans, will we even have the budget to do it? So I'm just kind of curious where that, if that could be a conversation at some point.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, right now, we're capturing, if nothing else changes, we capture about $180,000 a year.
Okay.
So we have some money to do some planning and that type of thing to, to move it forward. Don't have a lot of money to do any type of projects or infrastructure projects, so it is certainly without the development taking off or potentially the Kreitz Saginaw, which is also in the capture district, it does hamper our ability to do projects, but I think there's sufficient money to at least continue moving plans down the road, at least having some of that in place that helps guide the, future of the corridor.
Yeah. I saw in here as well that you had listed the grand openings and ribbon cuttings. So
Yeah.
will members of the CIA board be invited to those?
Well, that was the plan. Yeah, I've been, and I'm not recreating the wheel here. I mean, I'm just trying to keep up the momentum on things. So we're gonna get a lot of, have gotten and will continue to get requests for grand openings, ribbon cuttings. I mean, they can take all kind of shapes, whether it's an existing business, it's just expanding, or a major renovation, anything under the sun. I just wanted to, heads up, you'll be getting a lot of emails from me. Don't feel obligated to come to everything. I'll keep this group maybe just to the Saginaw Highway Corridor specifically. But don't feel obligated to come to them. If you can make it, I think it's great. I'm trying to build kind of a welcome wagon of people that can at least be in the loop on these things. And when you can make it, please do come. It's just sometimes having the township representation in the room. It's good to get bodies and photos. It's good to welcome new businesses. It's good to learn more about the business, because then we can all go out and, tell the story. And so I just wanted you're going to get emails from me. This is what to expect, and please don't feel obligated that you've got to make it to any of them or all of them. But just want to provide some context for those upcoming requests.
Great, thank you. And so, any other business?
I just have a question. Where are we at in terms of the court proceedings? In terms of moving, where are we at with it? I think I read something in the paper. It was at a level, I don't know if it was appeals court or Supreme Court. I don't know where it's at. Is there anything we can just update this group on?
That's basically, and Brian can jump in, but basically the decision, Chris was given the approval by the circuit court judge to buy the rest of the property there so he could start his next phases, which were the multifamily housing and then potentially a few other businesses and stuff. But that decision is what's been appealed to the Court of Appeals. So until that gets settled, everything remains on hold, and I don't know how long it would take for the Court of Appeals to rule on that. And there's still a lot of other issues still in litigation, but the piece that's holding them from moving on with the next one is that particular decision.
Did you get your answer, Calvin?
That gives me a little bit more clarity. Yes. All right. All right. I'd much rather hear it from this board as opposed to the media or the press, that type thing. So I just wanted to make sure everyone was on the same base with the same answers.
Yeah, great. So any other business, or are we ready for our next date of our next meeting?
Nothing from our end.
Anybody here?
I don't think so, not today.
All right. Well, our next meeting is scheduled for June 12th at 4 o'clock here. And don't have any closed session information. So I guess, is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Support.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
This was a short meeting compared to.